Hi, today we're unboxing and putting to the test a hot knife cutter I bought from Amazon. We'll be comparing the hot cutter knife with a standard cold cutter knife on this tough HDPE kitchen cutting board. Let's dive right in to see how the hot cutter knife performs. Here's the packaging. Everything's in Japanese because I'm based in Japan. It's a 60-watt hot knife produced by Taiyo Electric Industries and goes by the brand name Goot and has the product code HOT-60R. Anyway, we've got the hot knife cutter itself, which is actually a 60-watt soldering iron that's been fitted with a special blade. Though it's rated at 60 watts for power output, it only uses 55 watts of power, which is nice and efficient. The blade comes with this transparent protective sheath, and they've even thrown in some soldering accessories too, but none of that's relevant for today's experiment. Let's zoom in on the blade. For today's test, I'm swapping the stand that was included for this sturdier one to keep things stable. We're cutting into this HDPE kitchen cutting board. It's 3.7 millimeters thick overall, but I'll be slicing through this thicker portion, which is 4.5 millimeters. To protect my table, I've laid down a thin piece of wooden board beneath the HDPE. I've also added a silicone sheet for some extra grip. I've marked out two sections on the edge of the board, each 20 millimeters by 10 millimeters, one for the cold or ordinary cutter knife and one for the hot knife. But first of all, as a comparison, let's kick things off with the standard cutter knife. This adjustable blade keeps sliding back because of all the force I'm putting on it, but with enough muscle, I've got the first cut. It's tough going, but I'm using both hands to power through. Now let's turn the board to make another cut along that 20 millimeter line. It's still very, very tough work, but finally, success. Okay, here we go. I've managed to carve out the first piece. Here's a close-up. Looks pretty clean, but that took some serious effort. Now it's time to switch to the hot knife. I'll plug it in and let it heat up on the stand here. Since this is the first time to use this hot knife, I expect some smoke or a bit of fumes. Got to be really careful with those toxic HDPE fumes, so I've got the room ventilated well and I'm also wearing a mask. This hot knife heats up quite fast actually. The smoke tells me that it's ready to go. Now I'm placing the HDPE board on the silicone sheet for some good grip and we're set to start cutting. Remember, you can only hold the blue hand grip because the entire metal section gets scorching hot. As soon as the hot blade touches the HDPE, you can feel the difference. It's cutting way, way easier than the cold knife. The blade glides through, though not quite like butter. I can tell the silicone sheet is working. It's actually keeping the board really steady, which is a big help. I'm just showing you another close-up of the blade. You can see it's turned a bluish color here. It doesn't put out as much smoke as you would see, for example, when you're soldering, but the fumes are still pretty nasty, so ventilation is a must if you're indoors. Preferably do this outdoors. The hot knife is powering through the cut line. One thing to expect is that you will probably end up slicing through the silicone sheet while you're at it. And there it is. The second piece is cut out, and there we have it. Cutting was way easier with the hot knife, though the edges of the cut are a little messy because it's sort of melted around the edges there, but I'll just tidy them up quickly with the hot knife again. So what's the verdict? Well, the cold cutter made a cleaner, more precise cut, but it took some serious muscle to cut it through, and in some ways it might not be practical for a lot of projects. Unless you're just cutting small amounts, the ordinary cold cutter might do the job. On the other hand, the hot knife really breezed through all the cuts, though the edges were a bit rough and a bit melted, so not as accurate. So my suggestion would be to first use the hot knife to cut out the shape that you want, but don't get too close to the edges, just make it an approximate cut. Then switch to the ordinary cold cutter knife for a more precise finish. I'll be using both of these tools to cut HDPE board in my DIY autonomous mobile robot building series, so stay tuned for those videos. Thank you for watching.